Welcome back. I have this article I would like to talk about from them.us. It's titled Student Cries Discrimination for Failing Grade on Essay, Calling Transness Demonic. This story is crazy. It involves religious extremists and Turning Point USA. So let me read this and then I'll get into it. The University of Oklahoma has placed a transgender teaching assistant on administrative leave after she gave a student no credit for an essay that called trans identities demonic and claimed that gender roles are biblically ordained. So, Oklahoma University student Samantha Fulnecki filed a religious discrimination complaint with the university in November, alleging that graduate psychology student Mel Kurth inappropriately handed her a failing grade for a reaction essay to a signed reading that involved gender roles in society. Fulnecki's essay, which was shared this weekend on social media by Turning Point, claimed that gender stereotypes reflect, in quotes here, God's original plan for humans, and that children should be raised to believe, in quotes, that they do not belong to themselves, they belong to the Lord. Kurth's response, which was also published by Turning Point, states that she had deducted points not because of Fulnecki's beliefs, but for posting a reaction paper that does not answer the questions of the assignment. It contradicts itself. It heavily uses personal ideology over empirical evidence in a scientific class and is at times offensive. All of those things are true. So the teacher went on to say, you are entitled to your own beliefs, but this isn't a vague narrative of society pushing lies, but instead the result of countless years developing psychological and scientific evidence for these claims and directly interacting with the communities involved. You may personally disagree with this, but that doesn't change the fact that every major psychological, medical, pediatric, and psychiatric association in the U.S. acknowledges that biologically and physically, sex and gender is neither binary nor fixed, meaning we as humans can change our gender. And we know that because trans people exist, and we've existed since humans have existed. Trans people have been documented all the way back to ancient Rome. This is nothing new. So individuals who identify as trans, now this is now the right. An activist named Chris Elston said individuals who identify as trans should be automatically disqualified from holding any position as a teacher or a professor. This is a Canadian anti-trans activist known as Billboard Chris. So Oklahoma State Rep Gabe Woolley, a Republican who calls himself a former member of the LGBTQ community. So I don't know if this is a conversion camp guy or what. But he similarly called for Kurth to be barred from higher education and repeatedly misgendered her in a series of social media posts on X last week. Okay. So let's get into my analysis of this. So religious extremists have decided out of nowhere that trans people are mentally ill. They shouldn't be allowed to teach. And according to these religious beliefs, they believe trans people don't exist. They think trans people are just mentally ill cisgender people, which is not true. Anyone who knows anything about transitioning genders knows that it requires a lot of self-reflection, something religious extremists and Republicans can't do or are not willing to do. Mental health counseling is how many trans people come to understand that they are transgender. While they are labeling us mentally ill and trying to take our rights away, they are misgendering us intentionally, calling us slurs out in the open. I'm looking at you, Nancy Mace. Blaming trans people for mass shootings. Also looking at you, Nancy Mace. Calling for the firing of a trans teacher just because she is trans and speaks the truth. All of this behavior causes mental health problems to trans people due to anxiety, stress, bullying, depression, and with anti-trans legislation like this that Trump has put in this year, suicide rates go up even higher. These people are so hateful that they are causing mental illness in other people. This form of religion is the real mental illness. Turning Point is a cult of disinformation. They deny science, fact, research, and force their beliefs onto the public. These are personal beliefs that are not backed by any sort of fact, science, or research. They have to keep this community stupid so that they don't leave the cult. And I'm talking about Turning Point and the MAGA cult. Oklahoma is deep, deep in the MAGA cult and religious cult behavior. These people are indoctrinated from a very young age with false information that they later use to justify hate crimes towards people they don't understand. The cycle of abuse, disinformation, and hate is then passed on to their children, who they see as recruits for their cult. So this trans teacher who's doing nothing but her job was placed on leave. The student failed the assignment, but is backed by hate. So I see a parallel here with the Riley Gaines story. With that story, if you don't know, Riley Gaines tied in 5th place in a swimming competition with a trans person, and her entire identity is now anti-transgender Riley Gaines. That's all she seems to care about. She doesn't want trans people to be heard. She doesn't want trans people to be included. The right doesn't want trans people to use bathrooms or play sports. They don't want trans people to be correct in an argument. And they certainly don't want a trans person winning a trophy. Why? Because that would legitimize the presence of a transgender person. So Turning Point is a cult designed for uneducated, mentally ill people who believe in fantasy over fact. Not only that, but they are sponsored by corrupt billionaires and corporations who are hurting everyone in the country, including their own cult members. They don't just attack people they don't understand. They are attacking the truth. And the truth is, trans people are valid. There are not two genders. Trans people are not inherently mentally ill, but fall victim to mental illness due to social stigma from anti-trans legislation and religious cultism. These are facts we know to be real, and the religious right will not accept the truth. And the result of their denial is that people get hurt. Thank you for listening. Please like this video, comment your thoughts, follow me for more news. I'll be back soon.